What's up, YouTube? It's me, the Artisan MC, and today I'm going to give you my review and reaction to Lanterns Episode 2 Trust Fall. Well, I have to say that I like this episode. This episode gave me a lot of laughs, a little bit more questions, more just absolutely ridiculous moments, and deepened the mystery in a sense about what's going on in Richmond, the small town. The other thing I noticed, just for my cohorts on YouTube who will review this show, there were 6 F bombs dropped on an adult show. I don't think it's a big deal, but I heard people mentioning that stuff last week about how many F bombs were dropped, and I just realized that HBO Max doesn't do kids television, so it's not that big of a deal. At least for me. We pick up with John and Hal, still in Rushman, and Hal waking up John and sending him on a mission. Now, the first mission is for John to fly. And because John is not a test pilot, or how he visualizes or thinks about flying is completely different than Hal, who was a test pilot, John is not able to fly. But what John does do is create a construct that is, in essence, permanent. That he created a bird. And the bird, in and of itself, moved around on its own, followed him. Now, this is significant because when Hal takes the ring back, because John can't fly and the power is kind of low on the ring, the bird does not disappear, doesn't dissipate. It's still there. Now, me knowing Green Lanterns a little bit, all right, he made a semi-permanent construct, which is amazing, especially when it existed without the ring. Shouldn't. It should fade away like everything else. But he created it with such detail and such will. He basically gave it life, which is amazing. So while John Stewart cannot fly, this shows that his constructs are very real, very solidified. That makes it interesting. Now, the point of the flying exercise was not so much that he wanted to teach John how to fly. Hal wanted to send John on an errand to go get his lantern from his house in Coast City. And since he can't fly, he gives him a plane ticket and sends him on his way. Now, this is kind of funny to me because the banter and the messing with back and forth with Hal and John is like that irritating guy. Not so much a trainer, just an irritating guy, like a mentor, who's just irritating. He's doing stuff to him that he doesn't necessarily need to do. And John is kind of sucking it up and trying to deal with it. But at the same time, it irks him. It does irk him a little bit. Now, this is actually key to me because it shows John's level of self-control. That one of the things I keep coming back to with this show is that in certain situations, these characters will show no fear. They're not fearful people, so they don't have reactions that fearful people would have. And this episode kind of proves it in some ways. Now, while John is sent on his way to Coast City to go to Hal's house to pick up the lantern so the ring can be recharged, Hal sticks around the town and starts, following his instincts and checking things out on the football field, and discovers metal detectors that do not scan metal. And he finds it odd, which I would too. Now, going into town to, I guess, talk to the sheriff, he notices that nobody is in town. It's like a ghost town. Everybody is gone. Nobody is in anything. Not in the diners, nowhere. The streets are empty. Now, I'm thinking the whole town is aliens. Because why the hell not? That's weird. But when Hal uses his ring to, get a bird's eye view of everything with his last bit of power, he sees that everybody's parked in one area, so he goes to that area. Ring powered down. When Hal gets to the building, he discovers that it's a town meeting and everyone is there. And Hal makes a scene at the entrance and lets them know, are you talking about me? And he believes that they were talking about him because they probably were. But he, barges in, sits down, and just starts listening to what they have to say. Now, apparently the whole town is met because they are really thinking about, should there be another football game? Is it safe? What's going to happen? But in reality, they were thinking about when was Hal Jordan going to leave. Now, Hal's attorney, the sheriff's husband, is there, and they start talking about things. And the attorney lets Hal know that all the charges have been dropped by the judge, and he is free to leave and go anywhere as soon as possible. And Hal doesn't like that idea. He seems to believe that they're trying to get rid of him. Now, while they're in this meeting and talking and whatnot, the sheriff intervenes, and Hal and the sheriff have a little bit of back and forth. And Hal, I can say this, Kyle Chandler's playing of Hal at this moment is absolutely funny. It just is. He handles the comedy part. It's not a comical situation, but his portrayal of the character injects humor into the situation. It's like almost like being a spoiled kid. Like, no, I can't. What if I can't be quiet that long? Like, it's just silly, right? It's just silly at a town hall meeting with the whole town. He's like, oh, just wait. Well, how long? What if I can't be quiet that long? It's just silly, right? It's just funny to me. It's just funny to me, right? But he gets a call and he leaves. And the call is from Jon Stewart. And Jon Stewart has showed up to Hal's house. And we get to see, as the audience, where Hal is living. And it is a palatial mansion of a house. Like, what the hell? Like, how does he afford this? Right? Now, John is kind of impressed as well, even though he's talking shit. He has to be impressed. That was a nice house. It really was a nice house. And gaining interest to the house, he sees something that reminded me of The Boiler Room and Ben Affleck's character in The Boiler Room. Now, if you never saw The Boiler Room, it's a movie about stock trading and stuff like that. Giovanni Ribisi, Vin Diesel, a bunch of young hot actors. Ben Affleck is one of the higher ups in this company, and he makes millions of dollars on selling stock trades and stuff. But he has a beautiful house and an expensive car, and he basically has nothing in that house. He has a TV, he has a couch, and a bed, and that's it. Big, beautiful house, no furniture, no pictures, no nothing. This is what Hal Jordan's house looks like, but it's a mansion. It's a mansion. He has one room with a big TV and a folding outdoor chair for furniture. And Jordan is giving him crap about, living in the house or whatever. And Hal says he's lived there for 8 years. Well, if you think about it, it seems odd. But somebody with a Green Lantern ring that can fly off into space at any time they feel like it, and they're constantly dealing with stuff in their sector, You probably spend little time home, little time. And it shows, they say it in the behind the scenes thing that it shows his loneliness, that there is nothing there. I don't see that personally as being lonely. I see it as a very Spartan lifestyle. There's not a lot there because there's not a lot of time spent there. If he was the kind of dude to sit around all day waiting for I guess a chirp on his ring and sitting in the house, there'd probably be a lot more stuff there. Probably be snacks and some other things. It isn't because he spends little time there. Doesn't matter how long he's lived there. He's always gone. He's always on the mission. That means there's not a lot of stuff there. There's not a lot of time to accumulate stuff. So John gets access to the house and is directed into the bedroom where Hal has left his lantern, goes into his closet and sees the Green Lantern suits. Now, this is funny to me because this is another point that my counterparts online were bitching about from the trailer, that the suit looks dull and dingy and it's not even green and all the rest of the stuff. And that he's not even wearing the suit for the show. Well, we see the suits. We see he has 3 of them. One is green, but the other 2 look worn. They look worn and battle damaged. Like they have been used, which I would expect a Green Lantern suit to look like. I'm not expecting the comic book for everything to be bright green and standing out the whole time. No, I expect it to be something real that has been used. I mean, where do you actually take a Green Lantern suit to get clean? To the dry cleaners? Is that what we do? Or are you hand washing it in your kitchen sink? So I don't have a problem with this. The symbol is on the costume. It's a costume. Done deal. John gets a moment in Hal's closet to put the suit up to himself and see what he looks like wearing a Green Lantern suit, which is a kind of cool thing. I mean, if you were a kid and always grew up knowing what a Green Lantern was, and now you're working with the Green Lantern to be his replacement, you wouldn't be able to help looking at yourself in the mirror, seeing what you look like in the suit. You just wouldn't, especially if you're there. Now, John is able to retrieve Hal's lantern from this box, the vault, which is like a little pocket dimension, which think about Doctor Who's TARDIS in a really small version that can sit on a shelf. And Hal has to reach in there and pull out the lantern. And when he reaches in and pulls out the lantern, it looks like a lantern. It looks like a regular coastal. It could have been hanging in a lighthouse somewhere off Nantucket lantern with a big green crystal inside of it. It's kind of cool, very retro looking, but kind of cool, right? Not as cool as the pocket dimension, but cool in and of itself. Now, when John leaves there, he is off the phone with Hal and attacked by some men who basically abduct him. In the meantime, back in Rushville, Hal has gotten tired of waiting on the sheriff to finish the town hall meeting, and after his call with John, he devises another plan, which, since everybody is at the town hall meeting, he goes to the morgue and promptly starts taking the bodies out of the morgue that were shot on the baseball field and loads them up into John's car and drives it to the football field. Now, I'm laughing right now, but this is not even the funny part. This part was just, he's on the phone talking to John and sitting here stuffing bodies in a truck. It's like, what is this show? Now, this would freak most people out because he's handling dead bodies. Well, Green Lanterns don't have any fear. So this is the part where it comes in is that they can do stuff like this because these people aren't really afraid of anything. Right? So handling these bodies is nothing. Awkward, but nothing. Now, Hal takes these bodies to the football field because he has a suspicion. And I had the same suspicion. So what Hal does, he pulls a body out the car and drags it through the metal detector at the football field. And the detector goes off. Because when he was there earlier, he tried it with metal. It never went off. But he tries it with this cadaver, this body, and it does go off. And it lets him know that it's not a metal detector. It is an alien detector. It is there to detect aliens. And that's very interesting. So Hal loads up the bodies and starts driving back through town, and he's going to decide to go to Macon's ranch and ask him some questions. And lo and behold, there's police lights in this rear view mirror. And he gets pulled over. I'm laughing because this is the absolute worst situation you would want to be in with a cop pulling you over. A cop pulls you over on the side of the road and you have 4 dead bodies in the car in the seats. Like, it just made me laugh. And how Kyle Chandler plays it. You know, he knows the cop is coming up and he looks over to see, like, what? Like, oh, shit. So he has some quick quip for the police officer. As soon as the cops start getting out the car, I'm hoping it's the sheriff. I am hoping to God, let it just be the sheriff, please. Because otherwise, this is going to get real awkward really fast. It's going to go bad for him. And sure enough, it's the sheriff. And she is just taken aback by what she sees happening. But what you find out is that the sheriff already knew that those weren't metal detectors at the football grounds. She already knows that. They're alien detectors. She knows. And she tries to reason with Hal not to go out to Macon's ranch again because that would not go well. And Hal was like, yeah, whatever. He's going to go, but he has a hunch and he needs to be asking some questions. So the sheriff offers to go with him. If he doesn't say anything, she'll do all the talking. Fair enough. Hal agrees. They drive to Macon's ranch with the 4 bodies in the back of the car still. Like, I'm sitting here laughing like, why didn't they drop those off? What are you dragging those around for? I don't know. It's just morbid and funny to me at the same time. Like, why are you driving around with 4 dead bodies in the car? Go put them back in the morgue. What are you doing? Anyway, they end up at Macon's ranch, and Hal and the sheriff are not necessarily allowed in. Even though that's her father-in-law, she is not allowed in because it's trespassing. Now, it so happens that Macon is close to the gate, and Hal walks in to talk to Macon, and he starts making his case, his accusations about them being aliens, the bodies being aliens, and Macon knowing that they were aliens. And Macon is in equal parts irritable and short with Hal. He has one of his guys in their little watchtowers train a rifle on him and take aim and tells him, you know, well, don't leave, you will be shot because you're trespassing already. And Hal tries to kind of bluff his way out of it because Hal's ring is dead. It's out of juice. It is just done. I wondered earlier in the show what he could do with 5% power. He could float for about 2 seconds and then it was over. It's over. So power is out. But he's still bluffing like, oh, I got a ring and whatever. And as soon as he starts saying all that stuff and walking further and making his decided he's done talking with him, the spotter in the watchtower shoots Hal Jordan. Now, meanwhile, with Jon Stewart being abducted, John is actually put in the back of a van. And when he comes to, he's being watched. But he asked about the bird, and the bird is still there. Now, this is something very strange if you didn't know about Green Lantern. It's because that bird is still solid. Even when John was unconscious, the bird still existed. It was still conscious and living and stuff. The person who kidnapped him was sitting there holding the bird. So that tells you that's a pretty strong construct that he created. It's tied to something. No ring, nothing. It is basically alive on its own. That is incredible, right? Well, John kind of gets into a fight with the guy in the back of the van, and sometimes he's getting the better of him, and other times this dude is making him touch everything in this van one-handed, which is telling me this isn't an alien. This is not a regular human being. This is an alien because he got this boy touching every flat surface in that van with gusto. Now, while John is able to escape the van and do a little tenant run on the freeway, he is later captured again and taken to meet with their boss of bosses. And it turns out, yes, they are aliens. And yes, they are looking for something in Rushville. They give John the game on what's going on in Rushville. And it turns out the alien that blew himself up in police custody in the first episode, these are people connected to him. And they're looking for something else. And what they're looking for is a manhunter in the town of Rushville. Now, they tell John what a manhunter is and give him the story, and they use a bit of tech to basically show him what the manhunters did to their planet, their world. So now he knows it like they know it. He gets to see it and kind of experience it. Now, I think this is a misstep for the show because they didn't show you anything. You just get to see John's reaction to having this thing plugged into his brain, but you don't see what he sees. You don't, which I think is a misstep, but that would have been, some more special effects and some other stuff I guess they would have to do. But they should have did it because it will give you a better idea of what burden is now placed on John's shoulders. Because the alien that is there does marvel about John's construct on how it is able to be here with no ring and Hal Jordan nowhere around. And lets John know that that is something different. That's something special. Because usually they can't be there, right? So this person, I'm forgetting his name at the moment, lets John in on the skinny of what's going on in Rushville and asks him to help them. That when he goes back to Rushmond, because they can't go because there is field radiation or something that the manhunter gives off, and they will be detected if they're in Rushville. And instead of blowing themselves up in the town and taking all of that with them, they're going to let John go in first and kind of ID the person, signal them, and then they'll come in and take care of it. And they send John on his way back to Rushville. Now, back in Rushville, in the hospital, Hal Jordan awakes to find himself. He has been shot, not in the head, like I thought, and is hurt. His arm is messed up. He still has his ring, but he's in a hospital bed, and the sheriff is there. She's been watching over him. And they have a talk, which is a really good scene in this show to have the sheriff and Hal just talking. And she begins to level with Hal more, to tell him a bit more and be honest with him instead of being a bit guarded about what she knows and what's going on for the most part in this town. And Hal softens a bit more too here. You can tell that Hal is supposed to like this sheriff a bit. You do see the burgeoning of a relationship between them, that there is some, dare I say, affection there between the two of them. But the scene between the two of them is pretty good, all the way up into the point that Hal agrees not to keep making her job harder and undermining her authority, and then realizes he's chained to the damn bed. She handcuffed him to the bed. That's another funny moment in a serious scene, but it's still funny because she handcuffed him to the bed and has to release him. But in getting out the bed and getting dressed and leaving the hospital, Hal notices that there is nobody else signed in or signed out of that hospital. And as they walk through the hospital, nobody's in any of the rooms. All the equipment still has plastic all over it and looks new. So it's making him more suspicious about what's going on in this town. It's making me suspicious to believe, okay, everybody is an alien here. These people don't get sick. Nobody gets hurt. No skin knees. No shot with a bullet. He's the only person that's in this hospital? That doesn't make any sense. This is something really strange going on here. Now, Hal leaves, goes back to his hotel, and John is back in Rushville and stops at a diner to get some coffee. And sure enough, when he stops at the diner, who's in the diner but Macon's wife? Same chick that John boned in the first episode. Awkward for a hot minute, but then John goes and sits down with her and gets her story about what the situation was with her and Macon, and the fact that he wouldn't have slept with her. I don't say they slept; they were just effing in the truck. But they wouldn't have bumped uglies if he'd have known she was married. And actually inquires about what is the status of their marriage. Is it open, or are they just into that kind of stuff? And Macon's wife kind of explains herself, but the explanation she gives makes me believe more and more, given the people who abducted John, that Macon in and of itself is the manhunter that he is. That, in my mind, my headcanon, the wife is sleeping with somebody random because the father can't. I mean, yeah, the attorney is supposed to be his son, but could be his adopted son too. Could. They don't have to be blood. But it is something weird with the guy about how he behaves and how he acts and all this colonization talk. Something weird. Still not flushed out, still not revealed, and that's fine. I'm not that worried about it. I'm sure it'll be revealed in time. But John and this woman do have a decent conversation and find out a little bit more about her and why she's with Macon. And later she drops John off at the hotel where Hal was sitting, having a beer with his arm in a sling. And now we get a scene where John and Hal spent this time over most of the episode apart, and now they're coming back together. And John goes for broke, does the trust fall, and actually tells Hal what these aliens that grabbed him told him. Because they did instinctively tell him not to tell Hal. But John, after the talk with Macon's wife, chooses to trust Hal, or at least attempt to trust Hal, and tells him what's up, asks him about manhunters and whatnot. And that leads into the scene that you saw in the trailer. of how asking, where'd you hear that word? And John tells him everything. And Hal is immediately a little perturbed, but giving in the sense of letting John know a little bit of what he knows. And he is a little bit put off because when John grabbed the lantern from the Hal's house, he also brought his suit. And Hal didn't want to see the suit. He didn't want it. Right? But after a conversation between he and John, Hal goes to his room, dons the suit, and flies out while John is in his room, supposedly getting ready to go to sleep. And Hal flies directly to a prison planet and goes to talk to Sinestro. Now, it's interesting him going to talk to Sinestro because the dude does look like Sinestro from the comics. He does. I really like Mark Strong, but this guy does look like Sinestro straight up. His bearing, how he looks, him just sitting there in a cell. It's like, oh yeah, this is him. It's that dude, Mr. Yellow Lantern himself. And he kind of talks plainly to Hal, like he understands something more than Hal has expressed or stated in the show, and tells him, because Hal asked him about what he knows about manhunters, tells him that manhunter is the second biggest problem that Hal is dealing with. And in turn, he wants a little bit of a quid pro quo to tell him about John Stewart. And that's where the episode ends. And that was pretty cool in a sense because it does set up Sinestro as a Hannibal Lecter-like figure, giving information to this police officer who's come to pick his brain and learn some information. And he's willing to give that information up if you give him a little bit more information about what's going on outside. That's interesting. I like that. You already know, if you know Green Lantern lore, that Sinestro is the lantern that trained Hal. And it was Hal who had to bring him in. So at best, Sinestro was probably a better lantern than Hal. But Hal's will is a bit stronger. So the student has gone back to his teacher to ask him for information. And that has to be a kind of a humbling thing, especially with Hal donning the suit and flying out there to find out. It's interesting. It is not as big of a hook as the first episode, but it is still a hook because I want to see what else Sinestro has to say. I really do. Now, they didn't touch on in this episode anything about 2026 and Hal being dead in that time frame. Didn't touch on it at all. But what you do learn in this episode is that there is a manhunter on Earth, and a Green Lantern probably is the one that brought it there. And that Green Lantern was probably Abin Sur. And that the Guardians would want to keep a lid on this. So maybe Abin Sur was shot down. But regardless of that, there is a manhunter here. And it is a problem. So that leads to some interesting ground that they can cover in the next episode. And I'm happy to say I'm here for it. I really am. I'm enjoying the show so far. I mean, it's making me laugh during the show in some really morbid and some serious settings where I'm actually busting out and just for, shits and giggles, I went ahead and count all the F-bombs that there were in it because I know somebody else would. But other than that, I'm enjoying the show. Is it the comic book? No. But you know what? I didn't tune in to HBO Max to watch a comic book. I can go read a comic book. I tuned in for somebody to tell me a story with these characters. And so far, if they're off the comic or not, since this is not a story from the comic books anyway, I think they're doing a good job. I like this older Hal Jordan. I like this Jon Stewart. Their relationship is fun to watch on screen. And how things from Green Lantern mythos is actually put in there is actually fun. I do not have a problem with a real world take on superheroes. I really don't. If it's written well, it won't matter. Look at the Penguin. Real world take. You never saw a cape. You never saw a batarang. You saw none of that. It was an awesome show. Seeing somebody in costume wouldn't have made it any better. It would have taken away from what the show was. Lanterns, to me, after 2 episodes, is following that suit. Yes, you got to see Hal in his costume in this episode. Was he covered by a big green aura when he flew off? No, he wasn't. So what? We know he's a lantern. We know the lantern is green. We saw him charge the lantern and say the oath. Some shit you can get away with. For the bigger story. But that's just me. I enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing episode 3 next week. This has been Artisan MC. This has been my review and reaction to Lanterns episode 2, Trustfall. Like, share, subscribe, support the stream if you feel so inclined. $ Artisan MC on Cash App or Artisan_MC on PayPal. And for the full watch of this, check out my Patreon, Shop Talk with Artisan MC, where you will see the full uncut video of me watching this and reacting to it in real time. With that, I will see you next time. Peace.